All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome back to another Integrated Interventions podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas. Glad you could be with us here today. And today in the room, we have two guests, and I'm excited to have this opportunity. It's not every day that we get a chance to be in the same room together in this capacity. Across from me, we have Terry Edelmann, CEO and owner of Integrated Interventions. And to my left, we need to throw in the applause as well.
Yeah.
Dawson can throw in the sound effect in post.
That's right.
And the crowd goes wild. And to my left is Laura Flannery, who's the program director. So glad that you all could join us. Today we're focusing on family resources. And occasionally these are really great, I think, from a standpoint is that parents will and other stakeholders along the way will ask questions, and this is a great way to kind of get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So we can get that opportunity for them to have these questions answered. So I'm going to just start right into something that comes up. We talk about communication holds, especially during the first 30 days of the program. Why does Integrated Interventions do that?
Yeah, great question. So we have a 30-day communication hold because we are a relationship-based program, right? So we need those 30 days to be able to build those relationships with our students and for the students to be able to learn that you've got your mentors that you can utilize as your resource to try and problem solve, come up with different goals, et cetera, and that you don't need to utilize your family and your parents for those different things.
Or sometimes they reach out to their last therapist. So instead of building a new relationship, they want to hold on to the last relationship, and it's good. Like, we understand why. We just want to stop that. The other thing that we're also doing is we're stopping the manipulation. Mm-hmm. So the student will get here. Almost all of our students talk to me before they arrive, and they are saying, "Hey, I want to come to Integrated. Like, I either don't like where I'm at, or it's not working, or I'm looking forward to making more improvements." And they say all the right things, and then they get here, and as soon as they get here, they start the manipulation of, "I don't want to be here." And if they can chew on their parents, then they will. And it's not the parents' fault, but most of our students can raise the bar higher than their parents can jump. They have the ability to make their parents very uncomfortable, and they do things to scare their parents. They'll say things that are scary. The big guns are, "I'm going to hurt myself," or "I'm going to kill myself," and then all of a sudden, family members are concerned and they're trying to save that person. Well, we have a whole team of people here that are well versed in how to manage that appropriately. Well, we won't even hear those words if they don't feel like they can manipulate us. So the reason the parents hear those words is because the students know they can manipulate their parents. So by stopping that communication from happening, it gives us a chance to create buy-in, gives us a chance to help a student want to be here, understand what their schedule is, get busy, so that they don't have downtime. Downtime is everybody's enemy, but that's why we do that. It's very specific. It's not just because we don't want kids to talk to their family members. There's a reason behind that.
Well, it's easy to get stuck in those old patterns. There's so many old patterns at play, and as we know, change can be hard. So it takes time to be able to do that, and having that 30 days gives a head start to be able to make those changes.
Right. Yeah, and then just kind of dovetail on that, then you have, that 30-day communication hold is going to end. Mm-hmm. So now we are going to have communication, and the first communication is primarily with parents. We just say that kind of vaguely. Some students don't have parents. It might be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, might be a trust. There's a representative for that person. But whoever that is, we want to reestablish that communication, but we want to do that in an appropriate young adult child. So they're still somebody's child, right? Like I will always be somebody's child and somebody's grandson, no matter how old I get. But you want to reestablish that communication so that it's an appropriate young adult communication. So what happens is we've established a pattern previously of the parents being the case manager. So parents are talking to their students about therapy, what's on their schedule for therapy, what are their medications, how are their bowel movements, are they eating enough fiber, are they constipated, are they making any friends that have their same diagnosis? Do you have any bipolar friends? Do you have any ADHD friends? So, and students, drive students crazy. They're like, I don't want to be known for my diagnosis. I want the opportunity to have what we would think of quote unquote regular friends in the community. So that's one of the downfalls of treatment is you're supplying people with a population of peers, but they're all in treatment. So that becomes your tribe. I belong to the treatment tribe. So we're trying to help navigate that and separate that. Part of that is helping parents become parents again. So that communication, as we start to reestablish that, we want them to talk with their student about things that aren't related to treatment. You have a whole team of people here managing treatment. You don't need to talk to your student about treatment. So when they start to chew on you about treatment issues, I don't like my schedule, then parents should then redirect them back to the program. Whether it's this program or any other program in the world, you should redirect them back to the program. That way the student is learning how to understand who they should be talking to about what. So, the quote is who do I talk to be able to rectify employment issues? Well, that would be your employer, right? It's not your mom. You're not going to talk to your mom and have your mom call your employer to tell them that they're being mean to you because they made you wash dishes for, get your hands all wet. So that's why we start to reestablish that communication in a different order. And that should be smaller, shorter communications. So, I don't know, what are we averaging when we start most of the time?
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Once a week. We'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, that's a good way to start. And if they start off with, I don't like it here, you need to get me out of here, I need my car, I need my phone, I want to see my girlfriend, then you should
parking spaces.
Yeah, just in the phone call.
Yeah.
They're trying to manipulate you. So you in that phone call. And a lot of times that's difficult for parents because they're like, well, I haven't talked to my kid in 30 days.
Well, and our job too is also to help coach the parents how to be able to have an adult relationship with your adult child.
Yeah.
And so what are appropriate topics to talk about? Setting and holding healthy boundaries during their first phone call interactions. All those things are very important because it's going to be sustainable for long-term success in the future. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, right?
Well,
That's
parking
right.
spaces.
Yeah.
Parking spaces.
If you guys could talk about that a little bit more, that's a term that is utilized a lot in program. People will talk about parking spaces all the time, but for people tuning into this podcast, they may not be familiar with that saying.
Yeah.
So Terry, could you break that down a little bit so people understand what that means?
Yeah, when I talk to anybody that's headed to our program, I have a conversation with whoever's in charge of that. For whether it's a program, whether coming from a hospital, whether coming from home, education or therapeutic consultant is involved in those processes. We have a conversation about parking spaces and what that looks like so that they understand that language. And then as a student arrives, we're going to do that. Sometimes we can do that on a piece of paper or a whiteboard. It's a really simple concept of that. If you go to a grocery store and you pull into the parking lot, there's a place for shopping carts. There's a place for those electric shopping carts, which I always want to drive. There's a place for compact vehicles, a place for motorcycles, bicycles, handicap parking, pull-through parking if you're driving a big truck and a trailer. And it's the same thing in life. You have parking spaces for things that you're working on. So we'll draw this out for students, and there's a parking space for there's employment, then there's education. And in your education, there might be an English class and a history class. And then you have meds management, you have therapy, maybe you have work ethic at the farm. Maybe you have other appointments that have different people in charge of those appointments. So we look at each one of those areas as a parking space. And so you don't go to your math teacher at college and talk to them about your history class. You got to talk to your history teacher. And you don't talk to your mom about your employment and wanting a raise and having your bosses, giving you jobs cleaning a toilet in between doing dishes. You got to talk to your employer about that. So what's happened in the past is that parents become the case manager. Obviously, they're raising children. So we're at a point now where we're trying to raise adults. And raising adults means that they understand who they should talk to about what. And one of the problems with programs in general is that a student will leave a program and they don't have any life skills. They might have some social skills, and they've probably had quite a bit of therapy, and they're probably in a position to be ready to launch. But traditionally, they don't know how to date. They don't know where to get the oil changed on a car. They don't know how to set up the electricity for an apartment. They're missing some really, real adult skills. So by understanding parking spaces, that helps them understand that, okay, I need to get the oil changed on a car. That probably needs to be done at an oil change place, right? Oil Can Henry's or Jiffy Lube. You're not going to go to Taco Bell to get your oil changed. And it sounds funny and like, well, that's kind of a ridiculous statement, except that our students don't know how to do any of these things. They haven't been taught any of these things. And then that shouldn't be reflect necessarily on parents as like parents weren't doing their job. So a lot of times parents take these things kind of personal and they feel like they're, being insulted or attacked. And that's not the case. If you live in an area where the primary form of transportation is an Uber or a Lyft, or you live in an area where it's bicycle friendly, and then maybe somebody could go their whole life without knowing how to drive a car. They don't need one. But if you're going to go live somewhere else where you need a car, you should probably have that skill. So that's what we're talking about here, is understanding how to navigate the parking areas, so that the parking spots, so you know who to talk to about what. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking to make sure. Sometimes you'll be surprised how many people are like, well, but I'm their dad. I'll always be their dad. Like, I'm a dad. I get that. I have sons. Mm-hmm. Right? I have a daughter. I get that. And I also understand that all my daughter has to do is look at me with a teardrop in her eye, and she's probably going to get what she wants. It doesn't matter. She's a grown woman. I still see her as a kid. The boys are like, it's not fair. I'm like, well, shut up, you're a boy. So like I'm a parent. I get that you want to do things for your kids. And then it doesn't matter how old they get. If you feel like you're putting them in a spot where it might be dangerous, you want to do it yourself. Doesn't matter. They can have a career in the military. They've been surrounding themselves with dangerous things. But as a dad, you're like, well, I'll go ahead and do it for you. Right. Yeah, they're fully capable of taking care of you. And that's what we're trying to do, is raise individuals that are adults that are capable of taking care of all these things themselves. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they don't want you. It's that they don't need you to do things for them anymore.
Right. It's like the concept of teaching someone how to fish versus giving them the fish.
That's right. Yeah. It's very similar. And I tell parents all the time, don't worry. They're still going to bring their dirty laundry to your house so you can wash it on the weekend. Mm-hmm. They're still going to mooch food off of you if they get the opportunity. And I promise, if you offer to pay their cell phone bill, they're not going to say, hey, no, it's cool. I got it myself. So don't feel like you're being cut out. We just need them to be able to manage their lives like adults. And this is the pathway to doing that.
The ultimate goal is sustainable independence.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
Which, from our perspective, what does that mean? I feel like we have all these words that we talk about all the time, but they may not be as familiar to those maybe tuning in. So what does sustainable independence mean to integrated interventions?
I mean, it's whatever success is for that individual, right? So we try and essentially elevate a student with their lines and levels of functioning where they're currently at. We try and elevate them as far as we can to find what sustainable independence might be for that person. So that could be an individual who's able to successfully obtain their own apartment in the community because they're working in the community, they're balancing life, whatever that means as far as, work in the community, maybe school, friend group, what have you. And so they're able to live independently in the community with maybe some community supports like therapeutic services or medication management. But we also have individuals that might be a little lower functioning, that might need some more like forever care. And not that we can't be forever care, right? Because we can be that. And I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. But it could look like somebody needing a mentor with them side by side for the rest of their lives. And their level of independence is being able to volunteer in the community with a mentor working side by side with them, hand over hand, essentially kind of modeling what they should be doing. And so it's going to be something different for everybody, right? And so sustainable is just what it means for that individual to be successful more long term.
Like, we don't have a preset, prefabbed whiteboard on the wall that says, hey, these are the 5 things that you need to do to make level 2, and these are the privileges you get, and then you get a gold star, and then if you do level 3, you can get a $10 allowance. That doesn't have anything to do with real life. It's just so far from reality. Most of our students are employable to some degree. We want to meet them where they're functioning and elevate them from there. And the first thing that you do is you have to navigate where are they at structurally? How are they functioning? So if you can make a menu and shop from a menu and follow that menu for a week, well, then you've got pretty good structure. If you can make a calendar yourself with mentor support, and I'm sure we'll talk more about what a mentor does, but as you look at what as the mentor helps you put together your calendar, students will be like, well, fine, and I don't want to do anything. And parents are always worried about that. Well, they're just going to want to sit around and do nothing. Well, maybe. But sitting around doing nothing when you're at your parents' house, where there's a refrigerator full of food, and you have internet and a phone, then yeah, it makes it pretty easy. You don't get those things here. You have to earn those things here. So sitting around is pretty boring. And we just don't have students that choose to do that very often. They would rather engage. So, but that structure of being able to follow a menu and follow a schedule tells us that if you can follow those things day in and day out, then you could probably go to school and you could probably maintain employment. But that sustainable piece of I can't put you in a job if you can't get up in the morning and go to work. So we have to do this slowly in a way that's measurable so that you can demonstrate through your behaviors, your functionality that, yeah, this individual gets up, does their hygiene, takes their meds, makes their breakfast. They'll have support for all those things. They're not just left to their own demise. We'll make sure there's somebody with them. But then can they get to their appointments like they're supposed to, or are they refusing those appointments? Will they work at the hobby farm? Will they do work ethic in the community? Will they volunteer? Are they earning money? Are they taking the money that they're earning and dedicating that to getting sustenance, or are they just trying to get tobacco? They want vape juice instead of, making a burrito for lunch. So these are the kind of things that we're able to navigate in the way that we do it. We can make it measurable. When you can do these things consistently for a couple months on end, then we can recognize they're sustainable. It's become a sustainable behavior. So whether you're here or you leave and go somewhere else, now we know that you're capable of sustaining it. Now, whether you will or not when you leave, that's always up for question. I think asking somebody to make a meal plan if they're under 30 or 35 years old, unless they're an athlete or they have some very specific goals or there's health reasons, they're probably not going to make a meal plan. If they go shopping when they're hungry, they're going to get a bunch of junk. If they plan it, if they're not making any money, they're going to mooch. They're going to call parents and ask for money. They're going to bug a friend, whatever it might look like. But for them to be able to demonstrate the skill while they're here is what we're looking for. Show me that you know how to make a menu. Show me that you know how to shop from a menu and cook from a menu. Show me that you understand the different, what is nutritional. Show me that you can know what something is nutritional from a menu, whether you're eating bacon or whether you're eating chicken or whether you're eating, greens. I want you to tell me why you're choosing those items, but demonstrate the ability to do that so that we know when you leave, whether you choose not to do that or not, whether you follow through with it, at least you have the skill set. Most of our students don't have any of those skill sets. So we're looking for a measure in time. 2 to 3 months at any particular thing sets up a pattern of sustainability. So for us, for work ethic, if you can show me that you can go to the farm or volunteer in the community, something that you get, earning some hours on a calendar, you can do that continuously for a couple months, and then that shows me it's sustainable. Now we can move that to community-based employment. And if we get to community-based employment, we look at community-based employment at any job. Could be multiple jobs, but 3 months in a row, we consider that sustainable. If you can maintain employment for 3 months solid, then you could likely go do that anywhere. And if you can do 3 months of employment and you don't like your job, then you can apply for another job and overlap your jobs and overlap your paychecks. As you move from one to another, you won't have to call people and ask for financial help because your checks will be overlapping. So there won't be an opportunity for you to miss paying your power bill or putting fuel in your car, paying for your insurance, or having a active bus ticket or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that our program also offers that room for somebody to be able to have that trial and error.
Yeah,
right.
You can fall down.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about Integrated is that we're there.
Yeah.
Right, to be like, all right, so what did we learn?
Yeah.
What are we going to do different next time?
Yeah.
And so I think we offer that space, right? Because you're just not going to have those light bulbs overnight. And I can tell you about it all day long and what you should do, but kind of like the whole lead the horse to water, but you can't force it to drink concept. That's kind of what I think about, right? Is I can tell the students and our mentors can try and coach these different things, but oftentimes we have to learn by trial and error. So oftentimes here at Integrated, you'll find that I don't give advice. I might say, what do you think you should do? What are the potential pathways? Where could they go? If you choose option A, where could it go? If you choose option B, where could that go? Now, based on the information in front of you, which direction do you think you should go, right? And so I'm going to kind of help guide that a little bit, of course, but I need the students to be able to learn how to problem solve for themselves, right? So if they don't have me next to them tomorrow and they're standing on that sidewalk, did I teach them how to navigate their resources in the community well enough to be able to solve their own problems? So that's kind of another thing that I think about, is having that space for folks to be able to have that trial and error time period, for us mentors to be able to be here, the program to be here for that person to be able to pick up those pieces and to move forward, and then to teach them how to navigate those different resources within the community.
Well, I was just going to say that, I think a good example of that tolerance, right? To be able to, that's what was one of the things this program's famous for, is tolerance.
Right.
We have the highest tolerance of anybody in this country. You're not going to find very many people that will argue that, especially when they're calling us to take over for something. Like, this is just not doable for us. Can you help? So, one of those stories I think of was, and you'll remember this student. We had a young man that was really good at getting jobs. We taught him how to get a job, and he was exceptional. He was he just presented well. He followed our lead. There was a lot of mock interviews leading up to him getting a job. So he was good at getting jobs. They just weren't sustainable more than 3 days.
Yeah.
So you had 3 days of employment, and then within those 3 days, he would make sure to let the boss know. Didn't matter whether it was a fry cook. Didn't matter whether he was pushing a broom, washing dishes, driving a truck. Didn't really matter. He would make sure that the boss knew the boss was dumb and didn't know what he was doing. This kid was always the smartest kid in every room, whether you believed him or not. He would help you. And then if you didn't start taking his advice and change he'd just quit. He'd get frustrated and walk off the job. So then we started having a conversation about quitting appropriately. So we live in an era of cold quitters. We see that. Like when I was growing up, you gave 2 weeks notice. You would never leave your employer hanging. It didn't matter if they were a complete jerk. You didn't leave them hanging because it affected other people. So what I started doing with this young man is we started to teach him how to quit a job properly. So, okay, that at 3 days you're going to quit. So at day 2, give notice so that you don't leave your boss hanging. So then he started doing that, and we started seeing 2, sometimes almost 3 weeks of employment. Well, Mom got really upset with me, and she kind of went through it. She went through the coordinator. She goes through the director and somehow works her way to me with her frustration, which is not going to get any different answer by climbing the power pole. I'm like, look, she's like, I feel like all you've done is teach him to be a quitter. And I'm like, well, we went from a kid that was completely unemployable, who never had a job, to a student that can get a job, pretty much any job he wants. He presents really well. He's intelligent, and he dresses nice, and he interviews well. And now we got a kid that's being employed 2 or 3 weeks at a time instead of 2 or 3 days at a time. Right. So you're missing it. If I can get you to slow down, pay attention, I can get you to stop. If I can get some inertia with you, and I can get you doing 2 or 3 days, 4 or 5 days, 2 or 3 weeks, then we can make that bigger. We can add more to that. So, and that's what we did. So then we just happened to have a boss one time that said, hey, I know you gave me 2 weeks notice, but I don't have anybody to take over your job. Can you please stay here and help me until I can fill your shoes? And the kid was like, yeah, that's fine. But it was that boss making the kid feel like he was worthy, like he was needed. Right. And so he stayed. He probably was still telling the boss how to do everything, but the boss tolerated it and worked with the kid. So he ended up employed for 3.5 months. Well, nobody had ever seen that. The kid was unemployable when he came to us. So now we got 3.5 months. Did it take 6 or 7 months to accomplish that? No, on the other side, on another line, we had education. He was doing great in college. And he learned how to drive and got a car, bought his own car. I think he split like 2/3 him, 1/3 his parents. He's
Right.
paying his own insurance and paying for his own phone. So, the kid's made a lot of leeway to make the statement you're teaching him to be a quitter. Clearly, he hadn't quit on a lot of fronts, right? So it's just a one-off.
Well, when we look at those different lines and levels.
Yeah, no, and you have to look at it that way. There's different lines of development and different levels of functionality. You have to be able to assess it. When somebody tells me, well, you've taught him to be a quitter, well, he's not quitting in everything else, and now he's staying longer in employment. So I think the only reason that young man quit that job was because he had sabotaged himself by telling everybody repeatedly, well, as soon as he finds somebody, I'm going to leave. Yeah. If that guy would have never found anybody, the kid would probably still be there working. He might be in charge by now because he knows how to do everything. But anyway.
Well, there's no direct line to sustainable independence, as we know.
Yeah.
And it's going to vary so much from person to person.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no blueprint that for each person. And I think that's what's tough, because people come in with this idea of like, all right, you do this, this, and this, you should be able to apply this to this, this, and this, and this person, and it should be duplicate. No problem with duplication.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Well, as a parent, you see this. I remember with my first son, and I was watching my grandma. We were in the yard, and she was all giddy about having her first grandchild, or it was my mom. So first grandchild. I'll call her grandma because that's what all the kids call her. But anyway, my first son, he looks up and there's a plane going over, and he was like, a plane. It's like one of the first words outside of mom and dad he ever said was a plane, and my mom's like, oh, he might be a pilot. You're like, the reach there is like. And it's amazing because, grandma's all excited. She's like, oh, I knew what a plane was. I'm like, he knows what a dog is, too. He's like, he might be a dog trainer. I don't know. Maybe he'll be a sled runner. Like, he'll do the Iditarod. I don't know. But, as a parent, you kind of reach, it's easy for me to see a pathway. So if I have a son that says, I'm interested in law enforcement, then I'm like, okay, the fastest way for you to get involved in law enforcement is to apply for a law enforcement job in a major city. No one wants to work there. People are constantly trying to leave, but you don't apply for a law enforcement job in Idaho, because all the law enforcement people in Idaho came from big cities. They came from California, they came from Chicago, East Coast, places where they don't want to live and raise a family. They want to exit. So they're trying to get to rural areas where it's calmer, less crime. It's less scary, right? So most of the law enforcement around here is 10, 12 years in some city somewhere. So you want a job as a law enforcement agent, it's easy. I can tell you right where to go. Go to LA and apply for highway patrol. You can get a job. They'll put you right through the academy and they'll give you a sign-on bonus, right? And then I can tell you for the next 10 years what you need to do to increase your marketability so that you can be, when you decide you want to leave there, I can even tell you where you should apply. And all that's great because I have this hovering parent view of what should happen. And then you find out the kid zero interest in being in law enforcement. Like, that was my perception. We do the strong interest test. And the strong interest test, a lot of times these tests will tell you, structurally, it'll say, you should be a bartender. Well, what that really tells me is that, maybe you have alcohol problems. You clearly shouldn't be a bartender. But that tells me you're a social person, right? That tells me you're the kind of person that'll sit and talk with people for days. There's all kinds of social jobs. If it says that you should be involved in law enforcement, that tells me that's a structural job, right? So that's a job where structure becomes, maybe that's a teacher. Maybe that's a home inspector. Maybe that just means you work at Jiffy Lube because you're really good at being anal about making sure people, are using the right oil and you're taking care of people in a good service manner.
Routines.
Routines, right. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that hovering parent thing, it's easy for parents to recognize this is the pathway to success. Yeah. But that's not what our student sees. They see a different thing. And it's our job as a program to be able to recognize after a lot of years. I've been doing this for a very long time. Most people on our team have been doing this for a very long time. It's easier for us to recognize, this is the student's interest, but this is the complicated pathway to achieve that. First of all, he'll never be able to go to school and graduate those classes. He's smart enough, his IQ is high enough, his processing speeds are high enough. He'll never sit still long enough to do it. Right? He doesn't want to be told what to do, and he doesn't have good study habits. So then that starts all the way back at, can you make a menu?
Right.
Can you follow a meal plan? Parents are like, it doesn't connect at all. And I'm like, oh, it's all very, very connected. And it's connected here on purpose. And that's why we have custom fit programs. Is we can look at a student, find out structurally his foundation was never set. It's too whimsical. Everything was given to him. And again, it's not a reflection on parents. If you're two parents and you're working two different jobs because you're trying to make sure that your family is well taken care of, no one's going to hold that against you. Right? But you didn't have the time to teach them some of these things, right? But now somebody has to. And we recognize that maybe we have to back up and work on some foundational things like discipline and structure to be able to get them to be able to follow these basic structural necessities to be able to maintain employment, to be able to go to school.
Yeah, I mean, those are the stepping stones to reach the bigger overarching goal, right? And so sometimes I've noticed in my time working at Integrated is that I oftentimes see parents really focusing on this big, higher up goal and not taking a step back to look at some of the little foundational pieces that need to be in place.
They're going to graduate college.
Oh, totally.
My favorite is when the parents are like, you can be anything you want to be as long as it's a doctor.
Yeah,
You're like, wait, I get it. It comes from family of doctors. We've seen that with attorneys. We have generational families of attorneys, and they're like, you can do whatever you want. We'll pay for whatever education you need to be an attorney.
Right.
But not to be a veteran's assistant.
Yeah.
and surely not to be an Uber driver. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So you got to kind of look at what are students capable of, and we can help manage that. And then how do we get them on a pathway that is sustainable progression toward those goals? But the student might not even understand. We're explaining it to them.
Right.
But we have students all the time like, this is stupid. I don't need to follow a meal plan. I'll never follow a meal plan when I get out of here. But then you see it reflect in different ways. Like all of a sudden they're doing their hygiene appropriately. All of a sudden they're saving their money in a different way. So that's okay. Maybe it's not a meal plan when they graduate Integrated. But maybe it's just that they stay on a gym schedule or they walk. Or they're building out social interaction. But it's that structural foundation that they're lacking to begin with.
Well, custom fit program and sustainable independence are something that go hand in hand. And so today's podcast, we've been able to talk about a wide variety of topics. And that's what the fun part about this is that you start out with a few questions and then it will go a bunch of different directions.
Snowballs.
It does. It definitely snowballs. But we talk about interconnectivity, connective tissue, and how you had referenced earlier, Terry, that may not make sense that these things are connected, like with the menu and the calendar, but ultimately there are a lot of life skills and things rooted in sustainable independence that often are related, but you don't necessarily see it right away. So I feel like this is a great podcast for that, to be able to get out to the world and say, hey, look, here is the connective tissue. It may not make sense initially, but if you stick with this long enough, you're going to see how it works.
Yeah, true.
Well, I guess that's a good way to wrap things up then.
All right, well, good.
This is definitely part one. I've part 1A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We got this is a multi-part thing. We'll never not have enough things to talk about. So just stay tuned, and if there's a question you didn't hear about, chances are you'll get your questions answered in the future. Yes.
Send us. If there's things that you're interested in knowing, if you're watching these videos, then clearly. If you're listening to this or watching it, you clearly are interested in what's going on. So ask questions. There's so much stuff. There's times where I'll get on the phone with somebody. I can talk for an hour, and when I'm done talking, explaining things that we do, when I'm done, and they're like, yeah, so I have this question, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what I just talked about. We just do so much, and our bandwidth for treatment is so wide. Our tolerance is through the roof high. So, that gives you a population that is drastically different. It's not like most programs where you kind of know that this is the group of kids that these people work with. Our group is massive, wide. Send us questions. That would be great.
Do another podcast based on a question.
That'd be even more fun. Yeah, send us a whole bunch of questions, everybody.
All right, fantastic. Well, as always, please like, subscribe, visit us on Instagram, visit us on YouTube, Facebook, all the things that we have on a social media perspective. And once again, Terry, Laura, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Pat.
We greatly appreciate you. Thanks again, and we'll catch you all next time.